Good afternoon, this is TVP World. You're watching Midday Report. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. In Prague, the final debate between Prime Minister Petr Pavel and Andrej Babiš took place just hours before polling station opened this afternoon. And with voters heading into the ballot box, it was the last chance for both candidates to win over the undecided. Alexandra Belinda reports from Prague.
Two men, one stage and one last chance to sway voters. Last night's debate between Petr Pavel and Andrej Babiš was their final duel before polls open. Now, Prime Minister once again warned that Babiš's return would drag the Czech Republic eastward. His rival fired back, accusing the government of impoverishing the people. Analysts say that the two leaders largely repeated all arguments that we all heard before in previous debates, though Babiš appeared more disciplined than in earlier showdowns.
This election will have an enormous impact on the Czech Republic's future trajectory, whether we'll be a prosperous, safe and free country or whether we'll shift to the east. That's what citizens will decide in this election.
Babiš avoided calling his opponent Mr. Prime Minister, and instead he called him Mr. Fiala, a subtle attempt to strip him of stature. And while his rhetoric echoed his core message, he also sharpened attacks, calling Fiala's government itself the greatest threat.
The biggest problem of Europe is that we have this system not like in America. Because when Donald Trump said, okay, I swear, he signed 28 laws and that's it. So we were always in the government in minority, and we never had the chance to have this possibility to decide very quickly.
And that exclusive comment for TVP World highlights Babiš's broader strategy, pitching ANO as the one force strong enough to govern alone. And whether votes buy it will soon be tested at the ballot box. From Prague for TVP World, I'm Alexandra Belinda.
And just to give it a little bit of context of who's running in this presidential election and what do they represent, we have a tape of an explainer, so let's roll.
These are the two main contenders in the race for the Czech Prime Minister's seat, incumbent Petr Pavel and former PM Andrej Babiš. Both of them are conservative, but they differ sharply on key issues, from economic policy to their approach to the war in Ukraine. Andrej Babiš is a businessman and one of the Czech Republic's richest people. He was born in Bratislava, now the capital of Slovakia, and his native language is actually Slovak, not Czech. Before entering politics, Babiš created an agricultural and wholesale empire. His net worth is estimated at around $4 billion. Andrej Babiš is a right-wing populist. He leads the nationalist ANO party, Czech for Yes, which is running on a platform of raising wages and lowering taxes. Babiš has promised to shrink the country's aid to Ukraine and has opposed the NATO-wide spending target of 5% of the member states' economies. Babiš's main rival in the parliamentary election is Petr Pavel, the current Czech Prime Minister. Fiala pursued an academic career before entering politics. He was a professor of political science and became the president of Masaryk University in Brno. Under his leadership, the academy became the most popular Czech university. Petr Fiala is a conservative associated with the center-right. His party, ODS, runs as part of a coalition named Spolu, Czech for Together, which promises to safeguard the country's Western orientation and democratic values. Under PM Fiala, the Czech Republic has been a leader in supporting Ukraine in the war against Russia, as evidenced by the famous Czech ammunition initiative to help supply Kyiv with 1 million artillery shells. The Czech Republic is also home to the largest number of Ukrainian refugees per capita in the EU. Even though the two and their parties are frontrunners, the polls suggest that neither of them will be able to govern without a coalition. That means that one of the smaller parties can become kingmakers in the elections.
Munich airport shut down Thursday night after repeated airspace incursions. The closure follows weeks of Russian drones and fighter jets crossing into the skies of more than a dozen NATO member states in Europe. EU leaders met in Copenhagen on Thursday to discuss how to respond to the latest Kremlin provocations.
Munich airport in Germany had been closed on Thursday night following drones sighted circulating over it. The affected passengers assumed the usual suspect.
Everyone supposes it's Russia, and I do as well. And then why are they doing it? What do they want to provoke with this? It's strange and a bit worrying.
I assume it has something to do with Russia, yes.
Though the airport was reopened on Friday morning, air traffic overnight was substantially affected. At least 17 flights were grounded, while another 15 were diverted to nearby cities. This latest incident involving NATO member states' critical infrastructure comes just a day after Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that he received information about suspected Russian activity near his country's seaborne infrastructure.
We have another incident now close to Szczecin port. 2 days ago it was an incident close to our Petro-Baltic platform and our pipeline. Both are Russian vessels. And in fact, we have new incidents in our region, I mean Baltic Sea, every single week.
The port spokesperson, however, noted in her official statement that neither the port in Szczecin nor the port in Świnoujście, which hosts Polish LNG terminal, experienced any unusual activity. Though the alleged provocation did not result in any damage this time, the harsh reality is that since September, a number of European NATO countries have been targeted by hostile Russian actions, from drone and fighter jet incursions to circulations around critical infrastructure, including airports and pipelines. Multilateral responses, including NATO's Eastern Sentry policing mission, have been subsequently activated. As EU officials gathered on Thursday for the unofficial European Leaders Summit in Copenhagen, the bloc's potential responses were expected to dominate the agenda.
We live in troubled times. The Russian war against Ukraine is still ongoing. We see that Russia is testing our resolve. So these are times where it is absolutely paramount that we have a common sense of urgency and unity to address these challenges.
I think it needs to be reiterated that anyone who violates European airspace is liable to reprisals, because it is our right, and we will ensure that European airspace is respected, and that means continuing to equip ourselves.
One solution to these provocations is expected to be a drone wall, though, as experts note, the details remain obtuse.
Nobody fully understands what a drone wall is. I mean, it sounds nice, we sort of understand in general what it's supposed to do, but what exactly is it? I don't think anybody understands. That's number one. Number two, it's also, I think, clear that there are some member states that are more focused on this topic, and those are the member states here on the eastern border that have experienced Russian incursions. So the countries further to the west, they don't care that much about it, and they don't have the sense of urgency.
The proposal is currently in its infancy, but as underlined by EU Commissioner for Defence and Space Andrej, having an effective detection system as well as capabilities to intercept and destroy drones is an urgent matter.
Hungary has signed a contract with a French energy company to purchase liquefied natural gas. The deal follows growing pressure on Budapest to cut reliance on Russian fuel. But officials admit that the country is still far from ending imports from Moscow.
This is an LNG terminal on the Greek island of Revitosa near Athens. Soon, natural gas bought from France's Engie will be sent from here all the way up to Hungary.
We signed Hungary's longest-term LNG contract. From 2028, we will buy 4 BCM of gas over 10 years from Engie Group. Our energy supply is safe only if we can import from as many sources and routes as possible.
But Sciarto made one thing clear. Diversification does not mean dumping the Russians. Hungary is Moscow's biggest European customer, with 2024 natural gas imports amounting to 7.5 billion cubic meters, more than 80% of domestic demand. The country has a long-term contract with Russia's Gazprom running through 2036.
It's not because of technical and economical reason. They can diversify. They can do all the diversification of natural gas with US LNG.
After Ukraine shut down its pipelines for Russian gas, Hungary is getting its fuel via Turkey. But this transit route will also soon be out of the equation.
As part of the European Union, we will join the Union's efforts to discontinue contracts for the use or transit of Russian natural gas in the short term by 2026 and in the long term by 2028.
It remains to be seen how quickly Hungary will be able to diversify then.
Israel's blockade of a Gaza aid flotilla has drawn condemnations in many countries, but European leaders so far have responded with caution.
Italy, France, Turkey, even Brazil. All over the world, protests erupted after the global Sumut flotilla carrying aid to Gaza was halted by Israel.
I'm with them, absolutely, and I hope that they are still well, even if they are in their hands.
The flotilla consists of 40 vessels and carries nationals from over 40 countries, including activists, lawyers and politicians. Experts leave little doubt about the legality of Israel's actions.
In my opinion, this action was illegal, completely illegal. I think this was another example to show that they doesn't care. They doesn't care anything because they will claim that every criticism is anti-Semitism.
Political condemnations of the blockade were particularly strong from outside the Western world.
The attack by Israeli forces in international waters on the global Samut flotilla, which set out to deliver humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, constitutes a grave violation of international law and a terrorist act that endangers the lives of innocent civilians.
Political reactions from Europe on the blockade have been much more muted, mostly focused on the humanitarian situation in Gaza in general and the issue of consular support for their compatriots.
I am relieved to see that the rules of engagement have been adhered to and that so far there are no acts of violence or complications in the operation of the Israeli forces.
Protesters in Warsaw took issue with the lack of condemnation from the Polish government, and even more so with the government's general warning not to travel to unsafe places. Paint was thrown at the Foreign Ministry building, and at least one window was broken. Government officials, however, urge caution, even when one of the arrested Poles is a member of parliament.
The most important thing is to find a way to close this dark chapter in the history of Israel, Palestine and the entire Middle East, so that this doesn't happen again.
And that while most European countries, including Poland, have recognized the Palestinian state.
I don't know regarding those protests what European governments should do more about Palestine.
With the Israel-backed peace plan presented by US President Donald Trump under consideration by Palestinian terrorist organization Hamas, the destruction of the Gaza Strip is still ongoing, with at least 100 people dying each day from violence, famine and lack of medical care.
Local elections in Georgia are taking place tomorrow. Now, this comes a year after parliamentary elections, which the opposition says were falsified. Our correspondent Don Arlith is in Tbilisi now and has more. So Don, can you tell us what is at stake this time?
Yes, well, good afternoon there, Ben. So, here in Georgia has had a really rough past year and a half. We're looking at local elections, which will be somewhat of a litmus test to see which direction the country is headed. And this comes after, as I mentioned just a minute ago, since April 2024, of course, the government here, the Georgian Dream, put in place a foreign agents bill, which is modeled on a similar bill in Moscow, which is largely blamed for eliminating the opposition and dissent. Then we had parliamentary elections about a year ago in October, and the opposition claimed that those elections were rigged. They've been calling for another election ever since. Of course, we've seen very frequent protests here in Tbilisi on the streets and throughout the country. And of course, really the unrest broke out last year when the Georgian Dream, broke off accession talks to the European Union. So over this period, 400 people have been detained, 300 have been brutally beaten while in detention. Now, according to Transparency International, from April 2024 until August of 2025, 76 protesters face criminal charges and more than 60 have been sent to prison. It's all about accession into the European Union. Of course, many of the younger people want to join the European Union, and they say that the Georgia Dream is bringing them closer to Moscow. I spoke, of course, with President Saakashvili at the Warsaw Security Forum, and she also told me that there was no hope that there was going to be big participation in these elections and that more unrest could be very much on the table. Ben, back to you.
All right, thank you, Don, for so much update. And it does seem like there will be some turbulent times ahead. Thank you. And thank you for tuning into this edition of Midday Report. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.